The coroner's hearing into the death of pastry chef Adepeju Ugboma seeks to find out one thing: what caused her death? In the process of reaching that determination, testimony from all involved parties during her elective hysterectomy, which took place in April 2021 at Premier Medical Specialist Centre in Victoria Island, must be given. On Monday, it was the turn of gynecologist and obstetrician Dr. Motunrayo Amadu to take the stand. Dr. Amadu testified that she was one of 5 doctors in the theatre during Mrs. Ugboma's hysterectomy. She says her role in the surgery was one of an assistant, which focused on removing the patient's adhesions. She says because of the amount of people in the room, some of whom were separated by screens, because of where she stood and the time that had passed, she was unable to definitively answer some questions on the patient's blood transfusion and the activation of the drainage system. Mrs. Ugboma's post-mortem exam was also brought up in Dr. Amadu's testimony. She asked opposing counsel why no questions had been asked about jaundice. That question didn't come. Dr. Amadu went on to say that the autopsy had been bungled. That word had also been used by her legal counsel, Abimbola Akeredolu, in the same context. Tensions reached boiling point in the courtroom as parties on either side of the room disagreed over each other's conduct, a confrontation that was abruptly brought to an end by the coroner, who summoned the involved parties to his chambers. The hearing resumed some minutes after. Once the hearing was brought to a close for the day, an exchange of words between the CEO of the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission and Premier's lead counsel continued.
Every matter I have met you in, you have been less than true.
It is not unusual that at the bar there are disputes about how to proceed with a case, and it is not unusual that counsel may consider the approach of other counsels at the bar less than ideal. I think that that's what it was. It's not an uncommon occurrence in how we practice law, and it was resolved.
In the aftermath, I asked the FCCPC leader to reiterate his interest in the case.
It's very simple. What it is that the mandate of the FCCPC is to protect consumers. And the interest of the FCCPC is to make sure that to the extent of consumer protection, anything that went wrong here is addressed. There's an injured party. Not only do you want to make sure that the injured party is sufficiently addressed, you want to make sure that whatever processes are important to prevent this kind of occurrence from happening again, if it turns out that it was an inappropriate occurrence, that the processes, whether it's the coroner's inquest, any disciplinary process, the FCCPC investigation, or even any civil litigation, sufficiently provide a mechanism and a framework to prevent this from occurring again, or at least for how to redress it in the future.
So stay now, why are you moving when you summon the patient? Continue the whole
Despite sharing thoughts with Arise after earlier court hearings in this matter, this time, Premier's legal team chose not to comment on the case.
Professional ethics of the Nigerian bar dictates that you should not discuss matters in court, on television, or on the pages of the newspapers. So for that reason, I am going to refrain from commenting on the proceedings in court. When the judgment is delivered and the court is free of it, I will be more than happy to grant you an interview.
Well, the coroner's inquest into the death of Adepeju Ugboma is expected to continue, with 2 dates scheduled for the next hearing over the last week of February. It's at those hearings that representatives from both the Premier Specialist Medical Centre and a representative of the Ugboma family are expected to make themselves available for questioning, for testimony and cross-examination. Adefemi Akinsanya, Arise News, Lagos.